Okay, hello everybody. Okay, I'm going to start now. This is great fun to be doing things online, and this is funny to be talking about teaching online. So I would just like to say good morning, hello. I can see lots and lots of your greetings at the bottom, and it's just, this is the first time in my adult life that I have had a whole year of not being in Greece. And it is really heartbreaking for me. So it is wonderful to be able to be with you, even if it's in this strange way. So I can see your chat, and I can see your hellos, which is absolutely wonderful. If you want to make a comment there, that's fine. If you have any questions, you can use the question box, and we'll collect the questions and we'll try to answer them at the end. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be talking about now. For me, it's been a really weird year, as for everybody else, to try to do work online rather than face to face. And I've thought a lot about how we might use the material we have and how we might bridge that gap that we have. So what I'm going to talk about now is how we might use the course book when we're teaching online, how we may find a way, an easy-ish way of planning lessons. And it really is, what I'm trying to talk about here is something that is going to make life easier for everybody. And I think that's a really important thing to consider at this time. Life is complicated enough, as we see. And one of the things, I was listening this morning on the radio actually, and there was a teacher talking on the radio and saying how depressing it is to be faced with an empty screen when you're teaching, and to feel that the students are really hiding somewhere there. So how do we make sure that people are involved? So that's where you can be involved in this and make any comments you like. And so motivation, if you know me, you know that motivation is my middle name, and I really am very keen on ensuring that students stay motivated. So one thing here, sorry, I'm going to get the giggles here with the technology. There's a task for you to do, okay? I'm going to be suggesting certain things you can do teaching with your book online, and I want you to think about which of these approaches or strategies you can continue using once everybody is happily back in the classrooms. So this presentation, I hope, is going to have far more reaching effects than just an interim strategy. But please do forgive me when all the slides keep jumping up and down. This is just to keep you awake. It's a strategy. So what is important when we are teaching online? And I was just kind of throwing some ideas together in my head and thinking, you know, of some of the problems, of some of the things that are missing, and, you know, some of the things that teachers have been saying to me at this time. And so many things came up, and there were a lot of people really sad and frustrated and talking about how, you know, it's so difficult to do all these things. And to me, I just think, what is the most important thing? And the things that are coming out for me is this idea of making connections, of being connected, and maintaining a sense of community as we teach. For me, that's always been a hugely important part of my teaching and my training. This idea that we're a family in that classroom, we're a family together. So what is important when we're teaching online? What to me is the most important thing? Well, to me, the most important thing is, it won't show you the picture, sorry, is to be happy, to be kind of, not to be frustrated, not to be sad, but to kind of find some joy in what you're doing, to find something positive in what we're doing. So the first question is, why continue with your course book? Well, we don't have to be stuck to the course book. And I know that a lot of the presenters in this fabulous conference are talking about doing lots of other fun things online. And I'm totally supporting lots of those approaches. But one of the things that I find that's really important is this idea of continuity. So continuity goes hand in hand with security. For all of us, this has been a very disruptive time. So I think it's really important to feel that sense of just feeling like things are moving, things are still going forward, things are still somehow within our control. And this gives us a sense of security. This gives us a sense of safety. And I think for all of us, we really need that. And kind of, it's like the routines that we have are very important to our mental health. So using something, you know, something that everything else has changed. And it's really important just to say, let's just hold on to some of those things that haven't changed, the important things that are there. And definitely, you know, I don't want to say this as if I'm patronizing you, but we're all working too hard. You know, people are trying so hard to find things, to do things for their students, but the material is there and we might as well use it. And I think it's really important to make the most of what we have. So not to kind of recreate everything. And I know lots of teachers, particularly in Greece, and I won't mention any names, Mr. Diamandis, who spend their evenings and their nights preparing lots of activities for their students. But come on, guys, you know, let's be sensible, let's be practical, let's use what we've got, keep it simple, but think about other ways of making it a bit more interesting, which we'll talk about later. And I know that if we're talking about Greece, and I'm sure in lots of other countries, we're talking about teaching teenagers in particular, or the younger ones, and parents would like to know what's going on as well. I think parents need to be reassured. And when I say parental involvement, I don't mean that parents will be teaching the students, but that they might say, what are you doing? What have you done? Show me the page in your book, so that they can feel really secure as well, that, you know, everything's fine with their kids. And I think that's a really important thing to try and foster as well. So that's, I see George Diamandis is actually participating in this talk. So nice to see you. So that the course book is there, let's use it. But I think what we need to think about is a really simple strategy of how to plan lessons, so that we're not thinking of every single lesson, but we've got a big strategy. And I think that there's a way of dividing up the material in the book that is very straightforward. Now, try and follow me here with my logic, because I think quite often what we do in the classroom is maybe could be done somewhere else anyway. That, you know, are we making the most of that classroom experience? So, So we've got, you know, we've got the lessons we teach online as part, that's number one. Number two is we could set collaborative tasks, so students are working together in pairs or in small groups. And then the third thing would be students working on their own. Okay, so you've got the three approaches all together in the online classroom, students working in groups or students working on their own. Okay, so what would be happening in online? So online, and I'm just wondering about this. I don't know if you are doing the same amount of hours online as you would do in the classroom, but I know maybe we don't need to be doing so many, because what we do online should really be done, something that we have to do online. So not that the students are sitting at the screen and doing an activity on their own. That just seems to be a bit silly to me, a bit of a waste of time. So getting discussions going, allowing students to really talk about things, to talk about the topics in the course book, to talk about how they're studying, maybe even to talk about how they're feeling at the moment, getting them engaged with the experience, using this platform that we have for something really positive, not for silence, you know, that's just a bit silly, really. You might be able to show videos that you've got, because that's not something they might access. When I say vocabulary and grammar focus, I don't mean the exercises. I mean checking the meaning of words, getting students to brainstorm, getting students to explain the grammar to each other online, really making sure that there's clarity there. So different kinds of activity where listening and speaking is important, where this medium is necessary. And I think also it's a really good opportunity for students to ask questions, to develop a kind of a system where they can, whatever they've been doing on their own, they can come and say, look, I don't understand this. Can you explain this for everybody? Because it's not very clear. So kind of making it, you know, in those women's magazines kind of problem pages, you can have your session where, you know, ask the teacher, what's your problem? How can I help you? Because that's your opportunity to engage with them. That's your opportunity to actually be there as the teacher. So this is the time, these lessons online is when you are there and you are interacting with the students. So the other, as I remember, number two was when the students are collaborating together. And I think this would be a really, really a good way to go. And that's how I'm trying to get some of my teachers working as well, is that giving them the opportunity, they don't have to meet in person, if that, especially as that's not allowed in many places, but they can work online together. They can use Zoom is a very good tool. They can use their mobile phones, but they're working together in pairs or in small groups. So maybe they could do something like plan a presentation. And I shall talk a bit more about this a bit later on. But they're working together, so they're supporting each other. They're not feeling isolated, because I think that's a really important thing to do, to try and keep them from feeling that all they do is look at pages, they do lessons online, and it's nothing, there's something missing there. Because at school, when they're in the classroom, and this is the bit that we keep saying, shh, 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 stop talking, they are engaging with each other, they are supporting each other, they're giving each other that love and that friendship, which is really important. So working together is a really important thing for them. So planning presentations, things like that, maybe doing some research together, checking things out. If you give them an exercise to do, a grammar exercise, a practice paper from an exam they're preparing for, don't spend the whole lesson with them checking this. Let them check their answers together. You can give them the answers, they can check them, they can work out, oh, I understand why I made that mistake, or I don't understand why I made that mistake. Let's research it, let's Google it. So get them involved together. They could also do writing together. There's lots of shared documents they could use. And they could also do things like watching films or listening to songs. You know, they can get songs and on their phones and listen to them in English and talk about them, things they want to do. Watching films also is really useful for language development when you're listening very carefully and you're having to pick up what people are saying, because we know how difficult listening is for students. So this is something that they could be doing, and you can explain to them that this is, you know, so let's say that slowly, strain 2, part 2 of what they do, this working together. And collaborative learning is something that's really, really important, and it's really necessary. I mean, it is a life skill. Working together, collaboration, the communication, the negotiation that's needed for that is a really important thing. And this is where they can really help each other, and they can explain things to each other. It's not about one student being cleverer than the other. We all have different bits of knowledge. We all have different ways of learning, and working together is a really good way of sharing whatever it is we know. And even if it is knowing where to find an app that will give you the answer. And I think, as I've said before, that's a really fantastic opportunity for students to support and encourage each other to actually, you know, and if they spend half the time complaining about the situation, it's okay. That's not a problem. The important thing is that they do have an opportunity to talk to their friends. But if they can get into that habit of doing these things in English and just trying to make it a bit of fun, okay, and this isn't my time to speak English, this is my, I won't call it homework because we're all at home, but this is my special time for collaborating, and it becomes a nice habit to do. So as I say, collaboration online is a really good opportunity for students. They're going to do it anyway. They're going to get on their phones and talk to their friends. So let's give them that opportunity to work like this, not just with the teacher or on their own, but a bridge where it's going to be a lot more fun. So, oh, sorry. No, it's just, I had an example there of an activity where you can just look at the activity and from a course book, do it together, look at the screen, answer the questions and work together on it. So using different parts of the platform that you have, oops, sorry. So the sort of self-study part, I think is really important, that when students are on their own, sorry, this is not about the platform. This is when students are on their own. So when they're on their own, what should they be doing? Well, reading is a perfect activity that they could be doing on their own. There is no point them sitting in an online lesson reading. They need to be reading quietly, and they need to be reading at their own speed without the teacher saying, have you finished? Have you finished? And with the teacher actually not having very much to do at this point. They could be doing different kinds of research. And this I keep mentioning research, but I will fill you in on that a little bit later. So they could be doing grammar and vocabulary exercises. So these are the kind of things that you work through in the course book. And you know, you could just post the answers later so they can just check them. And there's something which I'm calling filling the gaps, which is not gap filling. So I'm going to explain filling the gaps in a second. And any kind of personalized learning, and I should speak a bit more about that as well, because this is a great opportunity for them to do things that they don't have to do what everybody else is doing. I've always said this about homework. They don't have to do the same thing. When they're in class, it's very difficult for them to be doing their own stuff, their individualized stuff. But when they're at home on their own and they've got that opportunity, they can be doing lots of different things, as long as it's developing their English. So these are just a few examples. I don't know why they keep jumping around, but here are examples, typical examples from any course book you might be using, where you've got these kind of exercises and it's absolutely clear to the students what they need to do. The rubric is there, they've done these kind of exercises before, and they can go through the activities on their own. A lot of the time, the students have access to listening anyway, you know, they've got the CD-ROM, sorry, or the whatever they have. So they can do a lot of these activities quite successfully on their own. Now, when I say about filling gaps and personalized learning, now what the situation is that all students have gaps in their knowledge. If they didn't have gaps in their knowledge, they wouldn't be students, they would be teachers. So there's always things that they either never learnt, have forgotten, or just are not absolutely clear about. Even when they get to higher levels, and I noticed that a lot when I was working in Greece, that you would have students who were C1, C2 level, but they were just little tiny things that they seemed to maybe never did, or they would say to me, well, we did that when we were kids, but we haven't done it since. So this is an opportunity when they're working on their own to find out what those gaps are, to notice those gaps, and go and do some work to fill those gaps, to just check, what was that? Why am I making this mistake all the time? And we can guide them to this. We can say, whoa, I think you need to look at your countables and uncountables because you keep making this mistake. And then guide them towards maybe something in the course book, or something maybe in an app. I mean, English Grammar in Use is actually, you can have the app on your phone and you can look up these things. So we can just tell them to do this, because not everybody will have the same gaps. So I don't know why it keeps just going to every other slide there. So I'll tell you what was in that one there. So using the tools available, the slide that it doesn't want to show you, because it's a secret, I think, is the screen share. So this is what I'm doing with you now. And normally, I have to say this, every other time I've used it, it works perfectly well. But of course, it won't today. So screen share is good for showing students things. You can show them things from the course book. You can set up the tasks. You can use the blackboard to write on. And you can use pictures and different things to start off discussions. So this is a useful thing to do. The chat box, I mean, I love using the chat box with groups of people. I haven't seen anything recently from you, but quite often that's a great place where people think of a question, they can put it there. And actually, when you think about it, if you have students from at lower levels, this is a great opportunity to encourage them to do a little bit of writing, because even if they're just writing in the chat box, they write very small fragments of text, they're still writing, they're writing communicatively. So I think that's a really nice thing to do. I mean, brainstorming is a great thing for the chat box. If you just say, okay, can you think of adjectives to describe people's personalities? And they can think of something. And it's quite a nice thing to do, because you don't have to say the word, but you can write it. You could even look up words on your phone and write them in, but you are participating. And this is what I think is really important, to think about how we encourage students to participate as much as possible, because you're still participating if you write one word. You don't have to do everything. And kind of giving feedback to things that are being said, to if you're talking about a topic and an argument, do they agree, do they disagree, do they think it's a good idea? All these things they could be doing. Right, it definitely doesn't like every other slide. So the breakout rooms, if you have breakout rooms, and I have to tell you a secret, I've been doing some lessons online, and that's been my favorite part of the lessons that I've been doing, is the breakout rooms, because that's a real opportunity for actually using the language. So this is where the students can work in groups, they can collaborate, they can do role plays, they can have little discussions on a topic, they can prepare for something else in the lesson. So really try out those breakout rooms. And even if it's things like this, there's lots of little activities in books where they can do this in the lesson quickly. You can give them, say, 3-4 minutes, say, right, find out as much as possible, talk to each other. And I say, even if they are going to be Googling this, that's fine. They're fine. If you don't know something, look it up. But they can do these little quizzes together, and it gives them that opportunity to have a little chat, to talk to each other, to breathe, and to say, oh gosh, you know, this is hard, or this is funny, or isn't our teacher crazy, and why doesn't she know how to use the technology? Whatever, they can have that little chat there. Right, flipping the class. I love this. It sounds almost rude. Amalia has said, what online teaching platform do I use? I use Zoom, actually, and I have to put my hand on my heart and tell you, I am not very technological. So I've been using Zoom as much as possible because I've got used to it. And it doesn't always work perfectly, but it doesn't matter. Okay, someone's recommending other platforms for me. Thank you very much. I'm sticking to Zoom at the moment because that's what I know. But I think the platform is an interesting question, actually, because it doesn't really matter what the platform is. As long as you feel happy with it, as long as you feel you've got to know it and you can use it to achieve what you want to achieve. And I think we're overwhelmed, wonderfully overwhelmed, with a lot of different tools, a lot of different apps. But I think, you know, we can find something, there's something for everybody, that's for sure. And it's quite nice if it's free as well. Okay, I say flipping the classroom. I always think that sounds quite rude, but I'm sure you've heard this expression before, the idea of the flipped classroom. And the idea of the flipped classroom is that rather than do work on your own, that's like homework, that is further practice. So you get introduced to a topic in the lesson and then you do more work on it after the lesson. The idea of the flipped classroom is that you do work before the lesson, so you are ready for the lesson. So before you start a unit, before you look at a different topic, you would give the students something to do. And this really helps to get them over that thing where you say, okay, here is the new topic. Can you tell me something about this? And they all go, because they're not ready to do that. They really need to have some time to think about things. I mean, I do. I can't just talk about well, I can talk about many things, but if you want me to talk about sport, I'm not going to be spontaneous in talking about sport. So imagine this is your next unit and it's about health, a healthy mind, a healthy body. Well, what I do is I ask students to prepare something on this topic. So, for example, they might, here's one here, research the most popular or the weirdest ways of keeping healthy, and be ready to talk about it so that you can Google things, find out some information. Or it could be a personalized thing. You know, how do you keep healthy? Especially when you're stuck at home in front of a laptop all the time, what are your little tricks for being healthy? Or what strange ideas can you think of that would keep you healthy? Or you might even, there are so many, that wonderful Greek tennis player, wasn't he fantastic? You might choose somebody like this sports personality and research, how do they keep healthy? What's their diet? What keeps them in that tip-top condition? And so that you're ready then to take the stage to, oh, I don't know, I've got these lovely pictures and they're not working. Oh, there we go. So you allow the students to be the presenter. Now, I think this is a really good way of getting this online situation reversed. So it's not just you. I don't like this when I'm just talking all the time. My friends who are listening and will say, Olga does like this, she loves talking. But in the classroom, we kind of change the focus all the time. We'll say, come on, you know, Dimitri, Maria, Anna, what do you think? And I think it's a really good idea to get the students, being responsible for that. You're saying, right, you are preparing this, you're going to be doing this in the next lesson, because it gives them that sense of purpose as well. And it doesn't have to be a long thing. You can say, okay, 2 minutes, you and you are going to have 2 minutes on this, but you are going to be leading it. You can let them share whatever they have. They can have a screen share, and let them do that as well, because I think this being involved is really important at this time. We don't want to be passive learners. So what was I saying next? Right. So personalizing learning. I've talked a bit about personalizing learning. I just thought I'd say a little bit more about this. This idea that, going back to homework, I think it's really important that, you know, when you're asking students to do things, that they can do them in different ways, and they can find things that really suit them, so that they don't have to use the same material. So they can find different apps, they can find different things that they want to do. They can go to things like, you know, the apps like this, which are really old-fashioned. I'm sure you guys know lots of fantastic apps, but there's a lot of stuff that comes from Cambridge Assessment and Cambridge University Press that's available, and it's all very, very good, and give them a chance, what Anya says, you know, to practice things on their own in different ways. And I think, you know, a lot of kids will, although they're stuck with this technology, the technology is varied and they can find different ways of using it. So that's a very good thing for them to do. Now, I did mention this a bit at the beginning, and I don't want to kind of step on people's toes in terms of, I'm sure school owners and principals of schools have a very specific idea of how much work teachers should be doing. I think it's important that we think about the time we spend with students and what might they be missing. So I would myself perhaps not do as many hours in the kind of classroom situation, but make sure I had time to contact each student individually. Because I think that personal touch is something that's missing. You know, when you're walking around the classroom and you're kind of, you're looking at what students are doing, and you can get close to them and say, what about doing that? And what's the problem? That's going to be missing, especially when students don't even switch on their cameras all the time. You don't get that. So some kind of, you know, even if it's 5 minutes a week, is to phone them or set up a little video meeting just for them to see you, and just to be that face-to-face closeness, and just saying, so how is it going? How's everything? And if they say, oh, I'm really having a difficult time, just be there for them, not to tell them off, but to just say, it's okay, it's okay. I think teenagers are the most deceptive of students, because when you ask a teenager in class, how's it? Everything's fine. Okay. How are you? Fine. Is there any, are there any problems? No. But they still need a lot of support. I think, you know, if anybody's struggling at the moment, the teenagers are really struggling too. So give them that personal touch. It could be a text, whatever. But if you don't hear from somebody, contact them just to let them know that you care. Okay. So don't let them get away with feeling invisible, because invisibility was awful. So encourage them, advise them, and also use it as an opportunity to speak in English. You know, you can do that in English, and it's an extra thing they have.